What if I were to tell you that the way we speak is already music? What if I were to tell you that the way we speak is already music? There are hidden melodies in every sound around us, especially language.
Yes, it is true.
Everybody talks in a different way, creating different musical patterns.
Sometimes these little things just happen, and those are called happy accidents.
This idea comes from a composer I'm very much a fan of, Leoš Janáček. He lived between 1854 and 1928 in the Czech Republic, and he's known for writing music based on speech melodies that he documented himself. In this video, I'm going to try out his approach myself by extracting melodies from the speaking voices of a list of iconic figures and make original music with this material. So how exactly do you extract a melody from speech? Well, each sound has a pitch and volume level, and the timing of these sounds is what creates rhythm.
Janáček totiž od roku 1897 začne sbírat nápěvky mluvy.
Já už nebudu pěkat.
Jejich psychický stav se velmi projevuje právě na mluveném projevu.
He was extremely precise, paying attention to every little nuance of each sound.
Však už je čas.
He believed that the way someone speaks is a window into their soul, not just through their words, but in the way they use their voices to affect tone, rhythm, and dynamics. This takes the saying, "It's not what you say, it's how you say it," to a whole new level. While others studied the masters like Mozart and Beethoven, Janáček turned his ear to the world around him. He then drew from these examples to convey similar emotions while writing his music. He's not afraid to have irregular patterns, odd repetitions, and seemingly random timing to some of his phrases. He even drew inspiration from nature. For example, this piece is based on an owl. But a majority of the language he drew from was Czech.
Pivo.
And what does that mean?
Beer.
Beer, When you listen to these examples, they are musical, but not as orderly or elegant. That's because speech, regardless of what language you're speaking, is spontaneous, even messy, full of interruptions and stumbles.
You know, it's interesting that people associate if you happen to have blonde hair.
Makes a big difference, but affects a sort of small to moderate number of people is great, as is something that makes even a small difference, but affects a vast number of people.
Music, on the other hand, is often more structured and intentional. Janáček's process combined the two worlds. Therefore, his music feels alive, like capturing a moment of real life in sound. I took a trip to Janáček's hometown of Brno to see if I can understand more about what drove this obsession of his. So this is where Janáček used to eat,
Yeah.
right? Eat or...
Eat and drink, especially. Gotta have the beer.
Kaj mám to pivo ty ogare? That means like, where's my beer?
This video is made with support from the Czech Center Soul, and through them, I was able to meet musicologist Jiří Zaradka, who showed me the actual collection of speech melody notes, as well as Janáček's odd machine that he used to measure the timing of his speech samples. The most moving note I came across was Janáček's transcription of his dying daughter's last words.
Já nechci umřít, já chci žít. Takový strach, poslední vzdechy a já.
I started to understand that gathering speech melodies was much more than just a musical passion. It was a way for Janáček to understand the people around him and preserve memories and document the way people express themselves through language and sound.
A nebo to bylo také jaksi moment nějakého, jak říká Milan Kundera, zastavení času.
This is why his operas are so gripping and effective. Where Janacek's process really shines is in helping him capture the complex psychology of the characters in his operas. He doesn't go for the perfectly crafted melodies that we hear in Italian operas, for example, but he goes for melodies that are just a few degrees away from the way these characters would talk if they were not singing in an opera.
Zas je realistické drama, které je psáno, které není veršované, a změnil základní přístup ke zpěvu, k tomu zpívanému textu.
Because of all of this, there's a chilling realism to his music, which carries a strong emotional impact due to its familiarity. Alright, so for the past few days, I've been gathering my own speech melodies, and here are just a few that I think are really interesting. First, starting off with Martin Luther King Jr.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Next, here's Michael Scott from The Office.
Yes, it is true. I, Michael Scott, am signing up with an online dating service. Thousands of people have done it, and I am going to do it.
Next, Maya Angelou.
In order to get a friend, you have to be a friend. Be ready to be a friend.
Next, Bob Ross.
And those are called happy accidents. We look for those. We save them, cherish them. They're our good friends. I'm going to add a little bright red here and there.
So listening to all of these examples is very entertaining, but there's something that I don't quite get yet, which is the psychology aspect of all of these different voices. When stripped of the actual timbre of the voice and the words, I just hear very mechanical sounds. So I'm not really sure how to turn some of these examples into actual music yet. This is where I went back to Janacek's approach and paid more attention to his internalization process.
Ale on nám vlastně ten text sám vypráví. Jde to skrze něho prostřednictvím těch jeho nápěvků.
The reason why he didn't just copy these melodies was because he believed that the realism of his process relied heavily on himself as the medium. I realized I was overlooking Janacek's real goal, which is to explore the patterns of speech in order to discover the emotional realism hidden underneath. I think that's why something felt missing when I was just focused on the sounds of these voices. The realism doesn't come from the notes and the contours of these lines. The realism comes from the perception. So in this case, it would have to be through my lens. If I can capture that emotion, that is the most real. I don't know if that makes sense. Here's a working draft where I'm focusing on Bob Ross's voice. The problem is that this doesn't feel like Bob Ross to me. And so I'm gonna scrap that and start over from scratch. Things started to click when I focused on the emotions that I felt when I heard Bob Ross's voice. It's quite different than the raw speech melody that I gathered, but it reminds me of his aura when he speaks. It's for bass, keys, and percussion, and I got my friend Ben Finley to play the bass part. So without further ado, here it is.